very good morning to all of you. Welcome to the second in the series of our Wellness Tourism panels for World Travel Market 2015. Today we're going to be discussing how we attract high-yield travellers via wellness tourism. Wellness travellers spend more money. This was discovered, or perhaps it was confirmed, what we already knew, through research carried out by the Global Wellness Institute over the last couple of years. The fact that they spend more money really matters to all of us. And as demand grows, we also see a need to ensure that we're meeting the expectations of our consumers through the professionalism of the skills and the expertise that our practitioners in the industry are able to provide. Today, our expert panel will discuss how they attract travellers for their own business, the evolving education base for the supply of industry professionals, the best and emerging formulas, and where they see the future of this high-yield market. My name's Annie Hood. I represent the Global Wellness Institute and lead the Wellness Tourism Initiative for them. I also have a company called the Wellness Business Consultancy. We have a panel of experts with us from a very diverse range of expertise. We have John Bevan, who is the COO of Spafinder Wellness 365, based in Miami. We have Gary Bartlings, the founder and CEO of Bartlings Associates, Pip Tyler, the international director for the Nielsen Group, and Professor Eleni Mitropoulou, did I say that correctly? Who is the assistant professor at Derby University. I'll ask them to say a few words about themselves in a moment, but before I do that, I just want to give you a little bit of context of the last couple of days, and indeed where this panel and this series sits in a larger umbrella of a schedule of wellness tourism that's happening internationally at the moment. We had a round table event on Monday where we gathered together some senior leaders of tourism, and there was some fantastic output from that, and indeed from a panel that we had yesterday on the art of wellness tourism, mastering the art, I should say, of wellness tourism. And some of the things that came out of that are very relevant to pull through into today's discussion too. And the top 5 things were about the enduring essence of authenticity that's delivered through wellness tourism and the integration of experience. And one thing that came out that I know we'll discuss today too is that travellers are seeking experience over destination within a wellness umbrella. And that may surprise some of you, others possibly not. But when travellers are seeking a program or an output, they want to relax, they want to de-stress, they're less bothered about the destination and much, much more bothered about the richness, the authenticity, and the expertise of the program that they're being supplied with. Using sensory language to communicate the experience, not selling wellness, but actually selling a multi-sensory experience. A great term that came out of yesterday that I hadn't heard before, I don't know whether any of you have, is the welderly segment, those who are well off and a little older. Who's heard of welderlies before? Okay, one person, excellent. And what wellness is, there's great debate around, okay, what is wellness? What does it mean? And the panel discussed this yesterday, and really it doesn't matter what we think, what matters is what our consumers think wellness is and how we respond to that. So, gentlemen and ladies, if I could ask you to say a few words about yourselves, and then we'll kick off the debate. Gary, may we start with you, please?
Thank you, Annie. My name is Gary from Bartlings Associates. We're a company helping operators, cruise lines and institutions to operate tours by private jet.
Good morning, everyone. I'm John Bevan, Chief Operating Officer for Spafinder Wellness 365, based in Miami. Spafinder is a business that's been around for almost 30 years. Started off as a travel agency, selling spa holidays in those days. We're now a site that aggregates 27,000 wellness locations around the world, everything from resort spas, day spas, yoga studios, fitness studios, independent practitioners. With a huge gift cards program in America and the UK. And we help literally drive consumers, wellness consumers, directly to wellness locations.
Thank you, John.
Hi everyone, my name is Elena Michopoulou. I know it's very difficult, but it's okay. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Derby in business management. My background is in tourism and wellness tourism, even more so now. I sit in different boards of editors for different journals, editorial boards, and I'm all about research and publications, really.
Thank you, Eleni. Pip?
Hi, good morning. My name is Pip Tyler. I'm the Overseas Director for Nielsen Active Holidays. So we stretch the boundary of wellness and do exactly what we say in the tin. We do activity holidays, not to be confused with adventure holidays. And we operate activity centres in the Mediterranean in the summer and in the Alps, skiing in the winters.
Thank you, Pip. So for now, in today's context, how do you attract these high-yield consumers? John, I'll come to you first, please.
I think that SpaFinder's always attracted the high-yield consumer to start with through the word SpaFinder, and we extended it to SpaFinder Wellness to encompass more than just spa several years ago, really when the research started coming out from the Global Wellness Institute. And the way that our business works is we're a gifting program, so we tend to, people who gift gift cards will tend to gift them to people who can afford to then go into the spa and spend more, or go in and take out wellness activities. The way that we're looking at moving forward is we are looking at actually taking bookings for travel destinations, and our site really attracts people at that level through the content that it generates, and really about targeting consumers who can afford to take on these leisure activities and hopefully travel the world with us on these wellness holidays.
Thank you, John. And Gary, for your business, you're very much the welderly segment. Yeah. How are you going about this? How are you tapping into these high-yield wellness travel?
I think the first thing for us is that the concept of touring by private jet has a sort of interesting, sexy connotation for most people, and the concept of using a private jet to connecting different places, to visiting different places, is actually quite unknown. So it's about creating awareness, and I think to the point about the wellness element, all of us, I think, will often talk about spa when we talk about wellness, but there's so many other elements to it. So I think it's broadened the message around what wellness does, and in many ways, or what it can mean. And in many ways, it's the same as the challenge we have for touring by private jet. So creating awareness would be a key thing.
So on the subject that was brought up over the last couple of days, where consumers are much more concerned about the experience. Yep. And how they're going to feel at the end of that experience rather than where they're going. Is that something that you're considering, or is it much more destination-based for you?
Look, it's both. I think for a lot of people, destination is probably the first thing that comes to mind. But if you have a group of people in a room and you say, you're going to go to India, what do you want to do? You'll get probably 10 different answers, nice. Apart from seeing the Taj Mahal. The connecting of those experiences, that's what we do. So the travelling by private jet rather than a normal aircraft or a normal charter airline is part of the experience, in my view.
Can you see the experience superseding destination in the future? Or?
Yeah, I'd say so, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, for something like this concept of touring by private jet, from my own experience, it's once people have done it, they'll do it again, and they'll go back to the same destination, but they want a different experience.
So people get an idea of that niche that you have. Mm-hmm. What sort of price tag goes with a 7 to 10 day private jet trip?
Sure. Look, there's a range of things that influence pricing for these type of trips. I just recently put a tour together for 3 destinations within Europe. By private jet, and it comes in for 9 days at £10,000. So £1,000 a day, but all inclusive, of course. Okay,
thank you. And Pip, what about your business in relation to this? How do you tap into that high-yield wellness tourist?
We're sort of different end of the market to Kerry there, I suppose. We're more of a traditional tour operator in the fact that we charter aeroplanes and we fly people to tourist destinations. We then rent hotels and operate the hotels, and then we put in the activities into those hotels. So our price point is a lot lower than that, obviously.
Sure.
And we're more
And what's your sort of average spend, for your guests?
about
No, it depends
between
on the
700 and 1,000, maybe is the average.
Okay.
Obviously.
And what sort of growth have you seen?
We've seen great growth, actually, really interested in this activity market. I mean, some of the main players in the market from the UK have fallen out of the market, which has left some growth space for us. But overall, we've seen growth about 15% maybe over the last 2 or 3 years.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And are you consciously tapping into this growing wellness traveller market?
Well, very much so. That's all we do.
And is that what you call them? Do you refer to them as...
No, we don't at all. We call them activity people,
Okay.
or active junkies, as they're sometimes called. But
Okay.
but and spa, as we see the wellness
Yes.
side, possibly as being the spa, the relaxation side, is a small proportion of what people do on our breaks. But we still believe that people. We attract people who relax by doing something.
Right.
So skiing down a blue run, all they're thinking about is the next corner,
Yes.
the next turn, and maybe the next coffee. And they're not thinking about workplace and stuff like that. So,
Yeah. So that's a very different perspective there. Pip sees wellness as more spa related, and his wellness traveller is an active person. So you're going to get different profiles from our guests here on the panel. Eleni, for you, what's your sense from an academic perspective of how businesses should perhaps reposition or evolve to attract these high-yield consumers?
Well, first of all, what we see is that it's about co-creation of experiences. The experiences do not work in silos. Businesses need to be part of those experiences, and staff are key. So we need to have staff, and businesses need to hire our graduates that are brilliant, by the way, to be more holistic, to understand more about spa, about treatments, about the destination, about the stories, about the myths, about the whole culture of the place. And this is what makes these unique and memorable experiences. But that is not sold. This is not a marketing thing. It's the experiences that are developed with the
so
staff.
It's the sensory experience that we're talking about that is incredibly relevant. And one of the things that came out of the panel yesterday, we had Alistair Herbert on here from Lingua Brands, and he taps into emotional sensory language. And I think this is something we're all going to see much, much more of in how we communicate all of our businesses, that we actually tap into emotions of people, rather than sort of going into corporate speak and everything ends up sounding very similar. And of course, we all need to sound different.
Annie, just a question
yes.
there, because Pip was just talking there about people doing activity and therefore forgetting everything else around them. That's probably a subconscious thing, isn't it? They don't realise that they're actually being well to themselves.
Yes.
It's the mental wellness of actually switching off and just focusing on one single thing. And again, come back to my point earlier on about how do you grow that for the higher end market is to create that awareness of the other elements of the wellness that you can experience.
Absolutely. And people are, as you said, a very, very important issue. So, this growth of the wellness within the wellness and wellness tourism market means we need more professionals within it. So what's happening at the education end to ensure that we have a conveyor belt, if I can say that, of more rounded, more skilled, more tuned in practitioners meeting the demand?
Well, we have seen this need for more rounded practitioners. So we have people doing hospitality or doing spa or doing things that are slightly disjointed while they shouldn't. And lots of our graduates and our alumni come back and say, well, I'm going for coaching jobs or fitness jobs or more holistic training sort of jobs. So we recognize that, and we are launching now from September a wellness degree, which will encompass more elements than just managing a spa or just doing hospitality or looking at a tourism destination.
Thank you, Eleni. And John, I know Sparfinder Wellness have recently released some data around the wellness traveller market. Was there anything in that data that surprised you?
There's definitely a few elements. So we polled several hundred travel agents across the US and the UK. One thing that was clear as far as wellness travel is concerned is that 83% of them all agreed that it was a market that was growing, and it's growing faster than other sectors that they were developing in. What was surprising is that we refer a lot to the word spa, and actually the reason for doing the wellness experience or holiday or vacation, as I'm starting to get used to saying in America, is not necessarily spa. So I think it's only about 20%. A lot of people are looking for other experiences. And I think the five-star market's onto that already. We're seeing some incredible examples of hotels who offer a local experience to their guests. And I think it goes to what you two guys were talking about, that breaking away, cutting off from your day job. And I've got actually an example in London, which is the Mandarin. I think they do, the chef will take you down to the local market and you can choose pick your fish or whatever you want at the market with the chef, go back up, watch him cook it, and then eat the meal with your guests. And I guess while you're doing that, you won't be thinking about your phone, your messages, your emails, and it's bringing you into the local culture. So even in the city, it's possible.
Yes.
And in the countryside, then there's no limit to what they're doing, and it's not all inside the spa. So this research was really interesting, but what was very encouraging was just the optimism around wellness travel and their desire to know more. What was lacking at the end was training. And it's great to see you guys doing that, bringing it on board. But what we need to do is find solutions between the guys who are going to be trained now and coming out in 3 years' time. We can't wait 3 years. So the industry needs to get behind that.
And if I could just jump in there, we employ about 1,000 people across our clubs now. And we have a real problem finding skilled practitioners, as you call them. And a big base of our activity is water sports. And we need all our practitioners to be qualified, and we've now started an apprenticeship in the UK. We had 90 youngsters in it last year who are now on the conveyor belt. There'll be another 90 on it this year, but we've felt we've had to start qualifying our own staff now.
Excellent.
It's great to hear that the universities are on the game now as well, which could be really good. Thank you.
A gentleman called Dr. Jack Travis said many years ago, the currency of wellness is connection. He was talking about it in the late 60s, early 70s. What that means now has different, I think, connotations, but that connection element is as vital now as it was then. We all have one of these, and that's the sort of devil end, if you will, of connection from a personal wellness perspective. But of course, we need that, from a business perspective to reach everyone. And I think from a connectivity perspective too, those silos that we've had till now, to some degree, a spa therapist, a surfing instructor, a yoga therapist. It's not okay anymore for those people to sit in silos. Their ability to connect, to coach, if I can say that broadly, and to be able to respond fluidly to what consumers want and need in whatever situation it is becoming, much more necessary and much more in demand, I think, from our travel consumers, who are, by the way, more and more savvy. Many times I think it's true that spas or organisations that offer some sort of health and wellness say, gosh, our customers, our guests tell us what we need to do, and that's something we all need, I think, to bear in mind. Gary, your target consumers are very much those welderlies. At £10,000 a throw, that's not something that everybody can jump on. I think that's one of your cheaper programs, actually. How do you foresee the ability to continue to tap into this segment through the private jet tour sector? What do you see that as?
Look, I think to some extent the private jet perception is, as I said before, is sexy, but in the end of the day, it's actually a very boring element of it, because what the private jet does is just facilitates transportation between destinations in a very convenient way, and it comes with a price point. But I think going forward to some of the points that you made and others, it is about that experience that the people are going to have in those destinations, where they want to come back, and particularly on this sort of program, they want to come back and have the dinner conversation about what they did, who they met. And the number of people that will say, when they're talking to friends, oh yeah, I've been to India too. Oh, but were you at the Taj Mahal at night? oh no, how did you do that? It's those sort of experiences, I think, that people are seeking. And in the wellness element, I just want to come back to some of the things that were said before, linking into that, is because I was reading some of the research from a few years ago, and the thing that struck me at the time when I was reading this was that only very recently was there an effort to define the market. And I think that's what surprised everyone. It surprised me, definitely, of the size, the scope, the potential for growth. So we're talking here about spa, but I think the continuation of that is other elements of wellness. It's nutrition, it's about mental health, and some of the things that have been talked about here. So I think we're talking about where it's going to go, but it's actually in many ways, in a structured ways, it seems such a young industry still, which is really exciting.
And Pip, where do you see the biggest growth within your portfolio?
Well, it's difficult to nail it down, I suppose, really. I mean, we've seen, over the last few years, we've seen the biggest growth in activity being in spa. Our spa activity has doubled in the last 2 or 3 years, really, and that's through providing better spas.
What does that mean as a percentage segment to the rest of your business, just to put it in perspective?
Crikey. Well,
It's
it's round about the 20%, I suppose, that people do here. You know,
Interesting.
people visit the spas for not all day, obviously.
Right, of course.
But the biggest growth we've seen is in biking, really. Road biking and in mountain biking. I mean, what better way to explore Greece and Turkey than on a mountain bike, you know, and with an experienced guide and with all the backup that you need to go. It's a great way of getting around.
Quick question that came up yesterday on mindfulness and mindfulness and sort of spirituality as a growth area, particularly through managing stress and, you know, being able to, you know, decrease the threat of hypertension. Are you seeing any demand for that within your business, which is very activity based?
Not per se that way, I suppose. We have people on our holidays who we can't afford Gary's holidays, but these are captains of industry. They're quite well heeled, and they're coming. You know, they're active people. Everyone's a member of a gym at home in the UK these days, and everyone knows you've got to do activity to keep fit and whatever, and it keeps you out of hospital and things. And there's no doubt the government are pushing that here in the UK as well. So that participation of sport is something everyone knows is good for you.
Yes.
So what better way to do it on holiday when you can get up and it's all laid on for you, the practitioners are there, the nutrition's there, as in the food, and you've got some spa or whatever to relax in once you've worked your muscles hard. So we see it as a great balance. The challenge is telling the world out there, the 55 million people in England who are our market, that you can do this kind of holiday.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things, I'm going to go slightly off piste, and I haven't warned you about this, apologies, but you know, one of the biggest segments of growth within wellness is workplace wellness. And for wellness tourism, actually any spotlight within the wellness segment is helpful to everything else. And in fact, the research that the Institute is doing this year will be released next week at the summit, and it's all about workplace wellness. And the evidence is overwhelming for the benefits to the bottom line of business, to productivity, to health, and you know, those of us who know, you know, what that data is going to be. I think it's only a matter of time before governments really start to tap into that and start incentivizing businesses for that. And I think that can only be almost a tsunami wave for wellness tourism, activity, you know, multi-sensory journeys, you know, in your segment even more, you know, that worried well and those welderlies, you know, really, you know, niching together. One of the challenges, you know, that we have within that is having data. You know, what you've produced is invaluable. You know, the sort of data that the Wellness Institute has produced is invaluable. Ellie, could you tell us a little bit about what you're launching in the months to come, because that has incredible value too?
Yes, we are launching a journal, an academic journal on spa and wellness management. We do realize that there is information in different places, but that information is sort of isolated. And we needed a central repository of all that information. So all these good case studies, good examples to come in one place and people can tap into that knowledge. Now, the underlying thing is also that this knowledge is more reliable, because it will have the academic rigor and validity that comes with university as well. Because there are publications out there that may not be as reliable, and data sets can be very difficult to treat at some point. So we are launching this International Journal of Wellness, of Spa and Wellness Management in the months to come. I'm not allowed to release the date yet, but wait for it, it's coming.
And you know, this is valuable not just for us, you know, in the private sector, but also for governments, because, you know, they need solid data, research, and more importantly, academia that says, you know, this is a slam dunk. You know, you're not taking the sort of risks that entrepreneurs, you know, maybe take. And so, you know, there's a growing glut of organisations who are producing this data, which is incredibly invaluable for, you know, for all of us. Now, as an industry, to be able to broaden our income, and, you know, right now, the wellness tourism industry is worth almost 500 billion, probably a little bit more now, actually, because this was from last year.
It's got most of it.
But we expect it to rise to around 670 by 2017, and that's, I think, quite conservative. Now, that wasn't bearing in mind the spotlight on things like wellness tourism, you know, the things that are happening actually all over the world to really put that spotlight on. But what do you all think that we're either missing or that we need to accelerate more quickly towards to grasp the opportunities within the wellness traveller market? John, can I come to you first, please?
Well, before I answer that, in parallel, what our research of the travel agents also showed is one of the main reasons why people pick a wellness holiday is stress related. That goes and plays to your workplace wellness, and I think the research that will come out of the Global Wellness Institute will be very interesting. Because if you think about it, the travel industry has got a massive opportunity, because as companies have to look towards the wellness of their employees so that they are more productive, that they cost less, especially in the United States. The healthcare costs are so considerable, and the insurance costs. So they are looking at this, and there's actually a huge wave over there, which I think is going to come here, where employers are suddenly realizing that by doing simple things, by encouraging their workforce to live better and more well, and actually it's not a lot of it's they're not going to dictate things. It's about making you aware and then allowing you to take on a different lifestyle, adopt things. It could be just doing yoga in the office. Our owner is really into it, and we want to sort of do what we preach. And we have, you know, yoga available 3 times a week for the staff. We have a massage room. You can have a full-hour massage once a month or more if it's available. And the employees absolutely adore it. So I think that the opportunity for the travel industry, as this comes through the workforce, then people will then want to take their wellness with them on holiday even more. We're seeing that happening anyway through activities like yours. I think the stress side, on your side, you know, you said it's just a to B, you know, getting them there. But we all know what the stress of going through airports like. Now, if you're lucky enough to be able to afford private jet, I think they're not just doing it for the flash element anymore. It is de-stressing. Yeah. We often talk about, you know, you go away and have a fantastic week in a spa and a relaxation, and you completely relax, and you could almost get re-stressed just getting on the aeroplane back to Heathrow. You know, well, if you can afford a private jet, you'll get home completely relaxed. So I think the opportunity going forward for our industry and travel is, I think all those numbers are conservative, because that didn't include the wave coming through workforce. Yeah. And so I think, you know, I don't think it's limitless, but it's pretty much, I mean, there's opportunity everywhere.
And to that point, John, too, you know, the explosion of urbanisation. And,
absolutely.
You know, the fact, you know, in the next 15 years, I think it's 75 or 80% of the world's population will live in a city. So that plays absolutely for them needing to be better taken care of. And actually, to the point of authenticity, Eleni, can you just talk to the point that, you know, your alumni come back to you, they've gone out into the workforce of wellness, and what do they come back and say?
Well, they say quite a few things, one of which is all the customers they are interfacing with are looking for authentic experiences. And authentic could even mean staged. Because it's one thing to look at a destination and look at the packages, what is available. People are not buying packages. Companies now need to switch their culture from product-oriented development to looking at the needs. What is the need? Stress. So how can we help you reduce your stress? What is your need? Relaxation or adventure or excitement? We need to look at the need and then try to address the need rather than what are the nice destinations, what are the cool things to do and package them and sell them. That does not work anymore.
To that same point too, or similarly, they're coming back and letting Eleni know and their mentors at the university that actually some of these companies are just not walking the talk. That they're not embracing, what John's describing is a true walk the talk of what we're sitting here talking about. But companies who just say it but don't do it, that's not authentic. That's not going to deliver, and it's going to push employees to other people. So it's incredibly important.
You're absolutely right. They come back and say, we work for wellness institutes or wellness centers, and the wellness for employees is not there. So none of these initiatives. So how can they sell what they don't experience themselves? They are more likely to sympathize with what the other customers are going through rather than say, actually, if you did that or if you did that and provide recommendations to actually create the coaching and the lifestyle and help their customers.
And what does that feel like to you, Pip? What sort of things do you do?
It's interesting. I think there's massive pressure on travel companies now, isn't there? Through social media now is instant feedback. And if you pretend to offer an authentic experience and you don't, you'll get found out like that now. So there's massive transparency across our industry now that we didn't have years ago. People can get onto a webcam now and see what the snow conditions look like now instantly. There's obviously no snow there now, but and likewise on TripAdvisor and through Facebook and everything, people can ask their friends of friends what people think. And I think there's no space now. We have to be really open and honest as businesses now, and it's put huge pressure on us. But
what do you think we're missing, not just from your perspective and your business, but from the industry generally? What are we missing that we could be building upon to accelerate the consumer throughput of wellness?
Well, I think it's what John and Gary just said. I think it's the public's have to understand that being active and doing these kind of things and relaxing through spa activities is really good for you. It is really good for you. And if the government has said that, everybody says it's good for you. Sport England in the UK are all about active participation of sports, and the government say you've got to do, is it 3 lots of 30 minutes a week you've got to do to keep yourself out the hospital. Well, if you go on holiday, you can do that for 3 hours a day. Then that's a great sort of buffer you've put in your bank, really, a fitness bank. And we find as well that people come on holiday to maybe go biking, and yet they'll pick up a tennis racket that they haven't done for 20 years and they'll enjoy it. And because we've got professional coaches who'll take them through that thing as well, they find they get re-engaged with their love of a sport they probably did as a kid and haven't done since. So there's a massive potential, I think, there for people who want to do something different on holiday or do something on holiday.
And do you think that comes back to what we were saying earlier about building that sort of sensory picture, because people know all of those things are available, but it's enticing them and almost showing a consumer, you do want to do this, and sometimes people don't really know what they want.
It's a massive challenge. I mean, Andy, our marketing guys in the audience here, but to get that message across in a small bit of space in the back of a newspaper is very difficult to get that kind of essence across, but it gives someone. Video's great now.
How much do you use Instagram? Just a question.
I don't know. How do we use it, Andy? I've no idea. We use it a lot. There you go.
Good answer. Gary, from your perspective, what's missing?
Look, I think one of the things I wanted to pick up on is what you talked about with the wellness in companies. And possibly I'm a little bit of a cynic when it comes to people want to focus on wellness, and I'm a prime example. I know I need to exercise, but it's much easier not to. So I think it is, and I think that would work particularly well with Pip's business there, is you've got to be able to facilitate that. So when you go to a place like that and you say, okay, well, I must go and swim, then you see other people, there'll be a peer pressure doing other things, and you get into it. I think the biggest challenge there is for people to see it as as a change to their lifestyle, as opposed to saying, I've got 2 weeks holiday, I'm doing this because it's good for me, and then come back into a lifestyle that's really not. So I think that's the challenge, and that's also the potential opportunity, I guess, in this field, is that people starting to realise how good it is and actually enjoy it, because they get told it's very good, but they buy into it and say, actually, I'm enjoying this. I want to do this when I go back home. I enjoyed sailing, so I'm going to pick up sailing when I go back home, or anything like that. So it's a lifestyle choice, and I think that is the biggest challenge in this, that people continue with it.
Well, and I think the flip side we haven't mentioned here as well, if you want to go and do some of this as an adult and you have a family, then what do you do with your kids while you're lying on the spa bed or while you're out biking? And we've captured that now in our business, and we operate kids clubs from 4 months up to 17 years of age, so the whole breadth of kids, and we take them away and do active stuff with them, not just face painting and stuff like that, but doing things with them. And that allows parents to go and do their thing.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, if you've got kids in tow, it's very difficult to do any of this stuff we talk about. And
to that lifestyle point as well, that it's very, very valid. And I think that's where governments can and should be really playing a part. And I don't want to, beat us up in the UK, because there's a lot of positive stuff, but it's all coming from the private sector, things like park runs, everybody pays a £5. It's a huge, huge community now. This Girl Can campaign, where, it's about, you've probably seen, all the posters around, that you don't have to look like a model to do it. We've all got wobbly bits, and we sweat and we get red and all of that. But there are governments taking more proactive steps. Mexico, for example, I don't know how they do it, but to get a free train ticket, you have to do 50 squats or something like that, or a certain amount of press-ups, and you get a free train ticket. And there are little initiatives like that starting to pop up, and that's fantastic. It's really, really putting the spotlight on wellness, and certainly for, everybody in the wellness business, it's vital. Now, to that point, that governments, public sector, some moving a little bit more quickly than others, how much help to the private sector do you think it is, genuinely, to have, the government representing some commitment to that, or does it not make any difference? What do you think?
I think it makes a huge difference. If people get in the habit of doing stuff in the UK, then they'll want to do it when they're on holiday as well. But the provision, we live down in Brighton, and I'm trying to think of the state or government-funded gyms in the area. There's none. They're all private sector, and therefore quite expensive. So it gets quite difficult for people, I suppose, really. But no, I think that if government, they are pushing, everyone knows they're trying to push people to be more active.
Yes.
Whether that'll ever push across to paying for people to go on holiday to be active, that would be great, wouldn't it? But I can't see it ever happening. But,
what's your thought on it, Eleni?
I think they cannot afford not to. Considering the NHS bills and the cost of healthcare, unless there is some money put towards initiatives to get the majority of the population healthier, in a few years' time, I don't think we can afford healthcare.
You're quite right, and actually, if we had an economist on the stage, a global economist, they'd be saying exactly that. No government can afford not to embrace this, because they can't sustain the growing costs. John?
I think I completely agree. I think the challenge, I guess, for all governments is, how does it come across? How can they do it in such a way that it doesn't come across like we are telling you to get fit?
But then that's the sensory language again, isn't it? It's
yeah, absolutely. And I think it would be through maybe helping the private sector in some areas to encourage kids to take up activity, to build it into the lifestyle. And then hopefully it's a long-term investment, but I think it has to be done. The healthcare issues everywhere. It's very prominent in the US, but I think it's the same here. So preventative is where we need to go.
Yeah. And by the way, the NHS just a month ago announced a 5 million investment into workplace wellness. It's a bit of a drop in the ocean because their sickness bill is 2.2 billion, but 5 million is 5 million, and it'll be interesting to see how that genuinely pans out, whether they monitor it properly, and so on. Gary?
I think there's both responsibility and opportunity for government and private sector. And I think government, the economics, some of the reports will say as well, people that are healthier is a cost-effective way of running your health system. And so that's the opportunity and responsibility, I guess, to some extent for the government, and the opportunity very much in the industry to say, well, if people are seeking that sort of experience, what can we put together? What can we create to keep that point I made before, keep that momentum going? It's a mental change. It's saying, I want to be healthy, I want to be well, I want to exercise, I want to eat well, and that's the opportunity for this industry to take.
And it's a happiness element too.
Absolutely.
You know, the socio-economic impact, we're talking about money really, or we have been, but you know, there's a socio-economic impact too, you know, which is as important arguably to the fiscal one, but very often, you know, the fiscal takes
well, it's
takes
just on that point actually, I think that, and you mentioned mobile phones before, but there's a generation coming through that's very much used to using a phone, Facebook, WhatsApp, all that sort of stuff, text messages, to interact with others. And I think going forward, people are going to might find it difficult to interact with other humans because they're not used to. They're used to communicate over other ways and means.
And that's the paradigms, the different paradigms of connection.
Absolutely.
You know, the connection with ourselves and nature, and you know, the devil on the table.
Just going back to the getting people involved and how getting children involved, we're seeing, going back to that word, what was it, welderlies? Welderlies, a great new word, but we're seeing a growing number of welderlies now who are bringing their grandchildren on these kind of holidays because they want their grandchildren to experience the kind of things that maybe they did as kids, and they've got more disposable income possibly than the parents have. Or their kids have, so they're bringing their grandkids along with their parents as well. So 3 generations coming on these holidays now and enjoying activities together. It's really interesting to see a growing number of that.
Excellent.
On the basis that everything takes a bit of time, which I think is related to this a little bit. You're talking about children there, but the whole activity that Jamie Oliver undertakes with kid meals at schools and
sugar tax.
Exactly, sugar tax. It's all those things that will, I think, bode well for this industry, where a younger generation is going to come through with a much more stronger mindset of being healthy, well away from the sort of 30, 40 years ago when smoking was fashionable and all this sort of stuff. People are going into a mindset that's very different, I would say. Yeah,
it's not cool anymore, I don't think. No. It's becoming very uncool, you know, to be not healthy. And you know, as a sort of a metaphor for it, I always look at the fashion industry, that you know, the haute couture of on the catwalks of Paris, Milan, New York, London, you know, hardly any of us can afford it. It's thousands of pounds, but almost overnight everything gets recut into Primark, Topshop, so that everybody can buy into it, and that's what we need to get to, you know, for you know, the health and wellness industry. Before we go to questions, I want to come to each of you again. You know, gents, for you, what are your expectations of the future for sustaining spend, loyalty and growth within this high-yield wellness tourism sector? Pip?
We're reasonably confident. We have a massive repeat business. It's about 50% of our customers repeat, which is just huge, really. That obviously means we've got to find 50% new ones every year as well. So there's a challenge there, but we're giving great comfort the fact that people are enjoying these kind of holidays. Yes. Once they're exposed to them and they find them, they enjoy them. The challenge is exposing them to them. Do
you have an innovation you can share with us that's going to be on the table for next year?
Well, a new website will be on its way, which will hopefully be more interactive. We'll
sensory language?
What's that?
Speaking to people's emotions rather than, you know,
because it's all holidays are dreams, aren't they? You know, people are buying these dreams from us. So, and we're using much more video. Obviously, to get that kind of content takes time to make it, and film it, and edit it, and then obviously have the technology to.
And quite right to say, what's that? Yes, quite. Thank you, Gary.
I think it's a very simple thing. It's delivering to the customer's expectations or exceeding it. That will mean repeat, as you're saying. It's that's, I think, we're very small at this stage, but it's that sort of repeat business, people coming back and talking about those experiences that we started with, and saying, I did this, and talking around the dinner table, telling their friends and family, and people saying, I want to do this. And you're only going to get that in a positive way if you deliver an experience that people want. So I think it's very much about that. Innovation is another one.
So innovation and experience for you. John?
I think our industry's got a a tremendous future in this area. I think wellness travel is benefiting from a lot of factors. We talked about some of them, but if you go back a little bit when all the ecotourism came out, and although that didn't kind of flesh out, and no one's wanting to chip in extra money for their flights and all that to put towards good causes necessarily, but what it did do is turn the attention towards using local produce, making the experiences local when you went away to these fabulous faraway destinations. But that's now playing into that local experience that the busy, kind of hard-working family, when they get there, they want to sort of really roll their sleeves up and live like a local. So these are things that are actually almost set up for this kind of wellness tourism industry to just pick up and run. Because as we've quite clearly established today, it's no longer about spa, it's about a lot more. And I just think that, there's so much activity and products out there that tour operators and travel agents can just tap into and really give those experiences to people who need to get away, who need to experience something else, just to get away from it. And to your point, with the millennials coming up who just literally don't even talk to each other and message each other, to actually get out there and speak to people locally in different countries and experience other experience,
So authentic simplicity.
Absolutely, authenticity.
And keep it, keep it simple. Keep it really.
So I think we're at the start of it, and I think with some creative operators out there or agents, they can literally do what they like and bring in mindfulness, bring in meditation, yoga, you name it. Get people to try things while they're on holiday and they're relaxed. Then there's a chance they'll come back and try it at home and carry on doing it at home.
Thank you. Eleni, for you, what are your expectations around the wellness practitioner skills evolution to meet these growing, discerning traveller needs?
It is about quality of service, and quality of service cannot be delivered unless staff is skilled to a standard. One of the important things as an organization, when you're hiring staff, you need to make sure that this staff is capable of looking at the big picture. So moving from product focus to the experience, to co-create that experience, we need to understand the needs and the sense of meaning. Now, we are all quite desensitized because we have a Facebook feed that has 3,000 things per second, and we don't really care about things. So one is to understand what the customer needs. Is it relaxation? Is it stress release? Is it yoga? Or what is it? But also the way of communicating. I don't see companies being able to communicate through Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Pinterest is one of the most beautiful visual tools for visual language, and it's highly underused by the industry. So it's not just creating the products that respond to the needs, but even more so using the language and the communication that they need as well.
So speaking to Alistair's points from yesterday, using emotive language that really connects with people. Before I open it up to the floor, I mean, just a point on what wellness is. And I think for everybody here and in this room, it really is about feeling better. The lowest common denominator, if I can say that, of wellness is just about feeling better, whatever that means to the guest, consumer, traveller, customer. And what makes me feel better may be different from what makes Pip feel better. And it's finding out, of course, what it is and communicating in that way. I neglected to say at the beginning, forgive me, gentlemen over there will be some questions at the end that you'll need your little calculator pads for, where you'll just be asked, to rate how fantastic the panel has been, and they have been fantastic, so I hope you say excellent. And there'll be a mic coming around in a second. Would anyone like to ask some questions of the panel? Thank you.
Lisa James, I'm a freelance journalist.
Please stand up if you don't mind. Thank you.
Lisa James, freelance journalist. Pip, I've got a question for you about your... You mentioned about the trend that you're seeing, which is grandparents taking their grandchildren on holiday, and I just wondered, when did you kind of see that trend start?
I suppose it's always been there, but I suppose in the last 2 years we've seen a lot more of it. Maybe as those grandparents just got to the age where they had more time on their hands and were able to devote more time to their grandchildren, but we've definitely seen a growth in that. We can't actually measure it, I'm afraid to say, but anecdotally we see a lot more of these 3-generation groups now coming on holiday with us. And when you speak to them, it's because they want to get together as big family groups. They haven't got big family houses anymore because they've flogged those to pay for their medical care. And so they meet on holiday, you know, and our kind of holidays, I think, are great no-compromise holidays. They can meet for breakfast, disappear off, and everyone does their own thing, meet for lunch, disappear off, do their own thing, and meet for dinner. So there's none of this argument, what should we do today? Everyone does their own thing and then meets for meals. So it seems to work really well. You see very few arguments.
Yeah, and I wondered as well whether you actually changed your product offering, you know, to
meet the demand.
Yeah, to meet that growing trend.
Yeah, I suppose we have, because our kids clubs, as we call them, have evolved over the years to try and offer. They're now down to bands of just 2 years, 2 years in each of the groups, to make sure we're offering activities that are relevant to that age group. And the kids are with other kids that they're used to being with, kids age at school, and the activities we offer are relevant to that age group. So we've seen that's really helped to kids want to come back and want to go into kids clubs rather than being dragged into them, kicking and screaming. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have another question? Thank you.
My name is Marina. I come from Croatia. We own a chain of spa centers in 5-star hotels. I think my question is towards Dr. Eleni. We experience shortage in good quality staff each year. So it's a seasonal hotels. And we experience huge issues how to motivate our staff to, you know, be the person who is really into wellness and who is going to sell the spa. So you said, you know, they should do yoga, they should do massages, and if you're going to offer all of that to them, they still don't, you know, they're not going to answer well on it. They're ignorant. So what would be your advice? So basically, all our staff are millennials.
So who's ignorant? The consumers or the staff?
No, staff.
Okay.
Right. You cannot make someone do something if they don't want to do it. So that's the end of it. But
then you also have a shortage, you know. You're like, that's the best what we can do.
Well, there are different ways of motivating staff. You can use the carrots or you can use the sticks. One of the most effective ways I've seen is through competitions between them. So who is the best staff? Or you get some brownie points, extra points, a day off, some sort of reward should they wish to follow one of your programs that you're suggesting. It's the same thing like with retailing. If you want to have an Elemis or an ESPA or a Dermalogica or whatever retailer big sort of treatment, you have to go through the hoops of what they are selling. So if you want to do the job, you do the job right. If you cannot have them competing as to who is better, you may want to consider different types of rewards for them.
I mean, also, if I might add to that, Eleni, you know, what I'm seeing in different countries is actually a surge of very, very talented freelance, you know, practitioners. And, you know, I don't know whether you bring in freelancers or your choice is to
Yeah, we do, and they bring a lot of problems into the team.
Well, all I can say is, you know, and actually I'm piloting something in Madeira, in fact, later this month, where, you know, we've really recognised that, you know, the talent and the skills of a lot of these freelance people, just by the nature of it, you know, they're not employed, and, you know, they're a valuable component of authenticity and high-level delivery. You know, within a country, which is very, very needed, and it speaks to a kind of top-down, bottom-up, integrative strategy, you know, that meets private sector and public sector needs, and they're being brought into wonderful properties, and it really plays to that perspective that we talked about from the beginning, where it's about experience over destination. So, as a venue, you can either get on that train and bring that in and create this experience with the people you need to create it. The problems, I think it's, potentially the way you handle it and sort of how they're rewarded and, and workplace wellness and all those sorts of things, but actually, from my experience so far, I can't say yet because we haven't done the pilot, but the reaction has been amazing, both from the venues. In fact, Jonathan's here. He's in fact hosting, the pilot program, and it's very much a win-win-win. Venues, those people there, on the ground, the destination, and it's those sorts of integrative models, I think, that are really going to start working for countries where there's a bit of a depressed economy for whatever reason. I hope that helps. Sorry.
Just putting in, what we found with the pure spa people, I think who you're talking about, is that we started working with bespoke, I call it gloop, but it's the products that it put on the oils and things, and we find that the practitioners are really want to work with high-end gloop, as I call it. So we used to work with Elemis, we now work with Temple Spa, who's very high-end, and they get a lot of bespoke training from these companies, which is very valuable to them, and gives them a bit of a worldwide sort of presence, I suppose, really, with these things. So maybe focusing on what kind of product you use to put on the people might make the people who are putting it on them a bit more motivated.
Thanks, Pip.
Thank you.
Lady, oh gosh, we've got lots now. Lady in the front was first. Thank you. Can you be brief? I can probably squeeze one more question, but thank you.
Hello, my name is Elena, like you. I'm a freelance translator, Spanish translator, and also a yoga teacher. So I was wondering, this is very interesting from my perspective. Sometimes I was wondering what the role of translation, and if you have considered it for the communication. I'm talking especially because when we talk about communicating in the right language, I'm also thinking when I organize retreats from the yoga perspective, when I organize retreats in Mexico with my students, sometimes there is a barrier with the locals because the majority of people in Latin America don't
speak English. Sorry to hurry,
English.
Eleni. What's your question?
What the role of translation is.
What the role of translation is. Eleni, do you want to take that?
For communicating that sensory language as well, because we might speak in English because most of it's become a lingua franca.
Okay.
But in Latin America, how can we access locals and also get the message across?
Sometimes the body language is far stronger than the actual language. So as long as there is someone to facilitate the interaction, then it's the attitude, the smile, the hand gestures, it's the attitude that plays the most important role in the communication.
Thank you, Eleni. We're right out of time, I'm afraid. Thank you so much to Gary, to John, to Eleni, to Pip, to all of you. We will be around. They're just going to ask some questions, so please get ready with your little calculators, and we will be around later for the two people that didn't have a chance to ask. You can come up and ask us in a moment. Thank you all very much.